Hey guys, how's it going? I just wanted to take a few minutes to do a video response to Rhaegar the Dragonborn, who did a video about the top 10 RPGs that he has yet to play, but would really like to try sometime in the near future. So, it got me to thinking about what games I have yet to play that I would really like to, and this is the list that I came up with, in no particular order. Werewolf the Forsaken. Now, I've ran about 2.5 campaigns of Werewolf, and to date, it is the best, the most successful setting slash game slash system that I've ran, for me personally. I think the pack mentality of werewolves really makes it easy to justify why the group of player characters work together and why they'll actually care about each other. Not that there's no, of course, friction or intergroup turmoil. There is, but I think that the way the game is set up and the role that werewolves play really lends itself to a good cooperative environment. And I think you can run the game, in a broad, it has a pretty broad spectrum. You can run it very hack and slash, very combat heavy. You could run a very political werewolf game. It could really be whatever you want it to be. I also think that sort of the way that the spirit realm, the spirit wilds are presented is really cool, and that werewolves, that's sort of their role, the thing that they do. They're sort of the policemen or the shamans of this spirit realm and the goings on between it and our world. It's a great game. It's really fun. Hopefully one day I'll get around to doing a review on it. So, number 2 is Wraith the Oblivion. You guys probably saw that, some of you perhaps, that I just got this game, Wraith, from Tim Harper. He sent it to me in the mail, and I am extremely impressed with the game. I was vaguely familiar with it before. I knew, the concept of the game, that, you were essentially a ghost, someone who had passed on, and I knew the concept of the shadow and everything, and it intrigued me, and I'm a big World of Darkness fan, but I'm only about 70 or 80 pages into the book, so I still have a ways to go, but so far I've fallen in love with it already. It's very dark, very sinister, very emotional, very role-playing oriented. It seems like it's a very intimate and personal game, and it can affect, as strange as it may sound, it seems like that game could affect you in strange ways, like you out of game. I don't know. I really want to give it a spin. I can't speak too much on it because, like I said, I'm only 80 pages in. But the fact that I haven't even read the whole book and it's already on my top 10 list of games to play, I think really says a lot about the game. Following that up is Geist the Sin Eaters, which, strangely enough, is arguably, I suppose, the New World of Darkness follow-up to Wraith the Oblivion, or the successor of sorts. In Geist, you play someone who has died and then came back to life, and you came back with a Geist, a death god slash ghost of sorts. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. Not too unlike possession, I suppose, but it's something that you make a deal with this Geist and you agree to let it inhabit your body as a chance to come back and live a second life. So thematically, it's very similar to Wraith, and I think I would actually like to give Geist a spin before Wraith, because it seems a bit easier to run and easier for the average player to grasp, while still dealing with a lot of the same themes. But regardless, I'd like to play Geist and Wraith. And if you guys couldn't already see the theme going on here, I am a huge World of Darkness fan, which leads us to the next one. Number 4, Promethean the Created. Promethean is a very strange game, even for World of Darkness. You play one of the created, someone that was an amalgam of different body parts, perhaps, that was brought together a la Frankenstein's monster, or perhaps you play a golem of sorts, or perhaps you play one of the Napri, I think it's Napri, because they come from Osiris, so Osai, Napri, I think that's the correct pronunciation. But yes, you can. It's a wide range of things, but essentially you're a walking corpse. You're, well, I suppose you could say a zombie of sorts. At any rate, you're a walking corpse, and the entire world, all of nature, people, animals, plants, life, in general, disdains you and turns away from you. And everywhere you go, you're rejected. And if you're just rejected by people, that's really about the best thing that can happen. If they come after you with pitchforks and sawed-off shotguns, that's, perhaps the worst thing that could happen. But it's a really cool game, very depressing. A lot like Wraith, it deals with a lot of questions about, humanity and what it means to be human, and, is being human really worth it? What are humans good or bad? The basic, those sort of questions are very prevalent in Promethean, and it's a very good friend of mine, a local GM that I know, has declared the game unplayable. But I think that you can play it. I'm not sure. I don't know about rules as written off the top of my head. It would be a difficult game to run, given the fact that it's very hard to interact with any regular people or regular anything. And the whole point of the game eventually is to become a normal person with no powers. So essentially it's a game where you're a walking corpse that's seeking, your end game is to become your average, ordinary, everyday Joe with no powers and probably little to no memory of your previous stint as a walking corpse, as a Promethean. So the game's very strange, but I would love to give it a go, because I love that sort of thing. So let me look at my list here, see what's next. I promise, not all of these are World of Darkness, you guys, but the next one is Vampire, Dark Ages, Vampire. Pretty self-explanatory. I love political games. I love the, I'm not a huge fan of the medieval genre, but as far as gaming goes, I think it is a very fun genre or style to play with. Very, very lethal, very deadly, very savage. All the religious persecution and really putting yourself in the shoes of, of course there is racism today, and it is nothing to be taken lightly. But even today, I don't think we can have the perception that they. Imagine if there wasn't even racism back then. It was on a regional level. It was this village and that village, let alone someone from a different country who, when you see them, they have a skin complexion or features that you had never dreamed of before. That is a very interesting, I think, role to try and put yourself in the Dark Ages, amidst all the political and religious and economic turmoil. And on top of it all, you're a vampire. Very fun game. I ran a bit of it, but I've never played it. I've never played any of these games, by the way. Werewolf and Vampire are the only ones that I've ran thus far, but I've never played any of these. Next on my list is Deadlands. It is not a World of Darkness game, but it is a horror game. Well, it's an amalgam setting of Western, horror, sci-fi, kung fu, a bit of fantasy. It has everything going on in there. And I can't say too much about the setting without giving it away, but suffices to say it's the Wild West. Excuse me. The Wild West setting, but it is the Weird West. Things. Well, you really gotta check out the book. I can't recommend it strongly enough. But things that things like Native American legend and Chinese legend, things like that, things like Sasquatch and the Chupacabra and Wendigos, those sort of things exist in Deadlands. Perhaps they're by no means a dime a dozen or common, but they do exist, and those are the sort of things that you deal with. You deal with the supernatural, but in a Wild West setting, and that really intrigues me. I'm a huge fan of the Wild West setting, and to be fair, it's the only Wild West game that I own, but I don't feel the need to go out and purchase another Wild West game necessarily. I think this one fits the bill quite nicely. Continuing the list then, on to number 7, Pirates of the Spanish Main. Pretty self-explanatory. It is a game of piracy. The swashbuckling genre is very straightforward, very fun. I ran it was going to be a short campaign, ended up just being a bit too short-lived, ended up being half of a one-shot, never really got resolved. But it was very easy. Most people are pretty familiar with the swashbuckling genre. They can get on board with it pretty quick. The combat's fun, a lot of barroom brawling, a lot of, swashbuckling, swinging from chandeliers, drunken debauchery, that sort of thing. It's very fun. Uses the Savage World system, which the version of Deadlands that I have uses Savage World system as well. I haven't had a chance to give it a go, other than the one-off pirate session that I had, but I do think that it looks like a very good system, very simple, pretty intuitive, direct to the point, gets you role-playing fast, and the characters level up fairly quickly. You feel like you're always advancing, always getting cool new stuff, but you don't feel, it doesn't feel unrealistic, it doesn't feel like, the accelerator is really pushed down to the floor on advancement, and yet you're always getting cool stuff. So I think the Savage World system is great, and I'd like to give the Pirates of the Spanish Main a try as a player, of course. Next would be Edge of the Empire. I have ran a session, actually multiple sessions now that I think about it. I've ran a bit of Edge of the Empire. It's been the only system, unfortunately, the only game that I haven't really got to work too well for the group, for my home group that I play with. I don't think it was any fault of the system or of the setting. I think a little bit the setting. I think just the genre didn't best suit the way that I presented the game didn't best suit the genre, and I think I still have a lot of hope for the game. I think it's a great game. I love the narrative die. At first I thought it was, BS that that it had its own die that didn't work for anything else, but once I gave it a try, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And just like anything, once you consider the amount of fun and entertainment you're going to get out of these die, they are certainly, the 80 or 100 plus, however long you play your game, all those hours of entertainment that you get from these die that cost, 12 or 13 bucks, or $8, whatever they are, it's more than worth it in the long run. So I really do think Edge of the Empire is a great game, and I would like to see someone else run it, and run it better than I did. I don't think it's necessarily a hard genre or game to run, but I didn't do it right. That's for sure. But I do have a lot of hope for it. I think it's great. I'd like to play under someone that hopefully do a better job than I did. Next, getting towards the end, number 9 here is Call of Cthulhu. I have ran, I don't know how many sessions of Call of Cthulhu. Not a whole lot, maybe 8, maybe 10. I've never played in it, but I'm not a fanboy, but I am a pretty big fan of Lovecraft and his writings and the mythos. So, and I do have a certain knowledge about it. I think I could get into the tone of it pretty well. But I really want to play a game where, notice about 80% of these games are horror games. I really want to play a game where I can feel a bit uneasy. I can feel uncomfortable. I could, maybe be a little scared, or if not terrified. If a GM could elicit those feelings and those emotions out of me, I think I could have a really good time playing Call of Cthulhu. Any Call of Cthulhu. I don't really care about. I have the 6th edition, and I think it's great. It's fine for me. Other than that, I don't have any familiarity with other systems, and to be honest, I don't really. I'll try anything. I just want to play a Cthulhu game. It's Gaslight, modern day, 90s, 50s, the Atomic Age Cthulhu. I don't really care. Even a Dreamlands game, anything, I think I'd have a lot of fun playing. Which brings us to our last game. The 10th game is going to be A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones game. Pretty self-explanatory as to why I'd want to play it. I'm not a huge fan of Game of Thrones, like a lot of my friends are, but I am a fan of the series. I do, of course, love the political side of things. I love that it's a very lethal and savage world. It's a medieval world, but it's also a very political world. It's a world where a sword can carry a lot of weight, and so can well-placed words. I think it's a great world in general, Westeros, and all of the Game of Thrones world. And I think that the way that the book presents, of course, the different houses, and you decide some things for your house, but for the most part you roll with some modifiers based on what part of Westeros you're coming from, and different things to determine, the stats of your house, as it were, your lands and your wealth and your political influence and things like that. I think that's a really cool, fun system. I have yet to give it a go as a GM or a player. One day I will run it, rest assured, unless I die tomorrow or something, but I would really like to play in it. And it would be a fun game with no plot immunity, no script immunity, just seeing what you could do. Also, the game utilizes destiny points, which I think are pretty cool. I believe that's what they're called. I hope I'm not calling it something that it's not. I believe they're called destiny points, and depending on the starting age of your character, that's has a direct correlation with your destiny points. So if you start with a young character, you won't perhaps have a lot of skills or as many attributes as other characters, but you'll have a lot of destiny points. So if you fail a few rolls, or if something bad is about to happen to you, from what I understand, you spend a destiny point, or X amount of destiny points, and you can either negate the bad thing or lessen it. And I think that's a really cool concept. Whereas if you start with an older character, say like an older character, perhaps you are very skilled, and you have hardened attributes, but you've, over the course of your life, of course before gameplay, you've spent your destiny points, as it were, and now you're a lot more skilled than this young lad over here. But if push comes to shove, and you get in a bad situation, you're not gonna have very many. It's not gonna be as easy for you to get out of it, which I think is a very cool mechanic and a cool way to represent the Game of Thrones and any medieval world. That it's very lethal, and bad things can happen, irrevocably bad things can happen at the drop of a hat. But the players still have a bit of control to be like, well, I'm gonna get through by the skin of my teeth this time, but then you use that destiny point and it doesn't ever come back. I think they don't ever come back. I gotta read the book more, but at any rate, I think that's a great concept, the destiny points, and I mean, it's Game of Thrones. Who doesn't want to take a spin on the Game of Thrones? I know I would. Making it sound like a game show now. The Game of Thrones! Alright. Well, thanks for watching this, you guys, and be cool out there.